My name is Edith Paswana. I'm the Executive Dean of the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs at the University of South Africa. It is an honor and privilege for me to be your program director this morning. And we are here as a large delegation from South Africa under the banner of the long partnership between the University of South Africa and the Thabo Mbeki Foundation that resulted in the formation of this school at the University of South Africa. Our main purpose of being here is to celebrate our achievements as Africans and also the independence of Africa in the form of the Africa Day. And today, this week, we are going to celebrate the 15th Thabo Mbeki Africa Day lecture under the theme, The State of the Continent, Reigniting the African Renaissance here in Tanzania. And we know that South Africa shares long historical ties with Tanzania. If I have to speak about the affinity South Africans have for Tanzania, this roundtable might not even take place because the stories are many from our liberation heroes. We know the place of Tanzania in South Africa's freedom. And Tanzania's role in fostering African liberation movements cannot be underestimated. In particular, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the former president, was a key figure in the struggle against foreign domination and helped popularize the concept of Pan-African unity. So Tanzania became the home for the African National Congress and the Pan-African Congress of South Africa. In 2004, we will also remember that the SADC, the Southern African Development Community, agreed on a project named after the last executive secretary of the OAU, African Liberation Committee, Lieutenant General Hashim Mbita, to research the history of liberation movements in the frontline states, plus extension countries, and also publish those results. So the generous funding was provided by SADC states such as Angola and South Africa, and the workshop was launched in 2005, and the aim was to present African perspectives published in Africa by Africans for Africans. And Lieutenant General Mbita said that we have agreed that indigenous African scholars and researchers from each country should do the research, thereby asserting the ownership, independency, and integrity of the initiative. And again, to continue the revolutionary agenda, the South African Democracy Education Trust commissioned also Tanzanian scholars, Elias Tarimo, Neville Rubin, Yusuf Lawi, to conduct research and contribute chapters to its multi-volume series entitled The Road to Democracy in South Africa, which is one of the research projects that the school hosts. So as South Africans, we are very appreciative of this contemporary moment of an independent Africa, which we share with our sister country, Tanzania. The theme of the lecture today is the state of the continent, reigniting the African Renaissance. And this theme acknowledges that currently the continent is experiencing a blend of progress and persistent challenges. And for us to shape the future in the spirit of African Renaissance, we have to pause, reflect, and assess the strides we have made economically, socially, and politically. And we need to come together as scholars, as researchers, as students, as practitioners in shaping the future of Africa in this changing world order. And the pilgrimage to Tanzania is very significant, as it will emulate the long historical connections of our anti-colonial liberation movements that have demonstrated the power of unity and cooperation. And very recently, in 2003, we saw President Samia Suluhu Hassan visited South Africa for bilateral trade talks, and this evoked those deep ties that led to the freedom we all enjoy today. And we are here not just for today, but we are here on a long week series of events. Today, we will start with this roundtable here at the Johari Hotel, and then tomorrow we have an academic engagement with students and staff at Nkrumah Hall at the University of Dar es Salaam. And we also have a day trip to Morogoro. And I think the last time I was here was when I was adjudicating the SOMAFCO students from South Africa doing a trip here. And also the high-level roundtable on Friday on G20. As we know, South Africa will be hosting the G20 this year, and this will culminate in a celebration on Saturday, Africa Day celebration at the Julius Nyerere International Convention Center, where you are all invited to come and invite people in your communities and to come and celebrate this important day with us here in Tanzania. We are inviting all dignitaries, academics, business people, and the public, including young people, so that they can learn about this series. And today's seminar is organized under the theme, Harnessing the Blue Economy and Tourism for Africa's Renaissance. We know that Africa's seas and oceans are more than geographic boundaries, but a living archives of our history and a catalyst for sustainability and livelihoods. And we know that marine and maritime studies have been identified as one of the catalytic niche areas of study and research at UNISA, underscoring our commitment to bring scholarship that bridges knowledges and transformative imperatives of our societies. So it is our concerted effort to ensure that we reignite the renewal of Africa. Our maritime legacy will be at the center of it. And the blue economy is at the heart of our sustainable development, as this continent is surrounded by the sea, Indian, Atlantic, and Southern Oceans, and the Mediterranean and the Red Seas. And to frame this discussion as well, we will have our vice principal, teaching, learning, community engagement, and student support from UNISA to do opening remarks and also talk about a little bit about the roundtable that we are hosting today. I would like to welcome Professor Eunice Sikwe as she comes to the stage. A warm round of applause for her as she comes over.
Program Director, I want to thank you for this opportunity of me welcoming in this event. Although you have done most of the work, I think mine will have to be very brief. I want to start firstly by greeting and acknowledging the very important visitors in this event. His Excellency, Dr. Thabo Mbeki, the Chancellor of the University of South Africa and the former President of the Republic of South Africa. You are welcome, Tata. The Ambassador Said Shabu Musa, Deputy Permanent Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Cooperation. The Chairman of the Board is also with us here of Nwalimu Nyerere Foundation, Mr. Joseph Butiku, and his fellow members of the foundation are also welcome. Dr. Ashatu Kijaji, the Minister of Livestock and Fisheries, United Republic of Tanzania, is also welcome. welcome Dr. Matshidiso Molapo, my colleague, Vice President, Strategy, Risk and Advisory Services from UNISA. Mr. Max Bokwana, the CEO of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, and the fellow colleagues from the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. Prof. Senior Namo from the Department of Economics at UNISA, Dr. Lucy Shul, Director of Studies at Tanzania National Defense College, the author Tudor, Executive Director, Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association, Prof. Godwell Namo, the Institute of Corporate Leadership at UNISA, Dr. Narim Jidwani from the Marine Institute, members of the executive and extended management present here today, you are welcome. Our moderator, Prof. Anthony van Niekerk, who will also be a guest speaker from the Thabo Mbeki Africa School of the Republic and International Affairs. The representatives from provincial and local legal representatives, businesses, civil society, research institute, something is of learning, various organizations, foundations who have honored our invitation for today and who are here. Representatives of the various media houses present here today, members of the university community, staff and students, including our alumni here in Tanzania, our esteemed guests present here today, and those that are joining us virtually, distinguished members of the audience, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. This roundtable, I think, Director indicated is of the TM Foundation, the UNISA and Julia Foundation. Partners will be hosting, I'm not sure of this mic, partners will be hosting Thabo Mbeki, the Africa Day lecture in Salam. The theme of 2025 has been repeated severally. It's about the state of the continent, reigniting the African Renaissance. Today, this roundtable is focusing on harnessing the blue economy. This is the focus, and tourism of Africa's Renaissance. And why is the blue economy so important? Why are we focusing on it? It is because Africa is surrounded by Indian Ocean, we all know, Atlantic Ocean, the Southern Oceans, Mediterranean, and the Red Sea. And these waters are a vital source of economic prosperity for the continent. And these oceans and seas are sites of contestation. Instead of them benefiting Africa, increasing our economy, they became a size of contestation and commercialization and are subject to exploitation. So today we believe that in this discussion that we are coming to hold here today, we need to be finding ourselves coming up with strategy on how do we make sure that these oceans and seas are focused on improving our economy instead of being exploited and used to fight or for us to fight each other. And Africa, we all know that it suffers from weak strategies for identifying, promoting, and protecting the economic trade and environmental security interests. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that this roundtable will assist us, and it will answer some of the questions and give us these strategies to say, how do we protect the blue economy and how do we utilize it to increase Africa's economy, Because when coming to the economy, all of us in Africa, in different types, whether we are on the north, on the south, we are battling with the economy, in needing to increase the economy. So we believe that this day we will come out with some strategies where after the discussions we can be able to influence the highest bodies to say this is the direction we think should be taken to save or to increase the economy. I want to say in the few words, I thank you so much and I welcome you for being here. And we are in Tanzania now, but I will still say in my language, Xhosa language, I would say Kululani Ibaki. In other words, in Xhosa, if we say you must take off your jacket, we say you are welcome, relax, and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sikwe. At this point in time, we have to call our partners, the chairperson of the Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation, Elder Joseph Butiku, to make us feel at home and be able to give a words of welcome from the foundation and on behalf of Tanzania.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Edith, first for helping me to on the stage, because I'm mzee. Mzee means an elder, so sometimes on these stages you might lose your step. So thank you very much for helping me to come up here. Your Excellency President Mbeki, I address you as President because I always believe once president, always president. It never ends. Professor Edith and all the colleagues who are here, invited guests, I'm just here to, on behalf of the board of the Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation, to thank President Mbeki and his foundation and the team which organized this meeting for inviting the Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation, for which I'm representing here, to co-host this meeting. It is a very important meeting, and we recognize that honor. It is honoring Mwalimu, it is honoring the foundation which he established, it is honoring Tanzania. So, Mr. President, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You have all heard what has been said here, so I'll just go through a few things just for emphasis, just to repeat it for emphasis. But you have, maybe some of you have read the concept notes, so you know what it is all about. The theme of this process is the state of the continent reigniting the African Renaissance. There was a time when I visited South Africa with Mwalimu, and we visited President Mbeki. At that time, I think he was vice president in his office. It is at that time when, after the discussions with Mwalimu, he said to Mwalimu, Mwalimu, I have a task for you to help me. It is the African Renaissance. And Mwalimu briefly says, because he was leaving, I am ready when you are ready. So I'm grateful that you have remembered to continue with this promise, with this work. I remember this African Renaissance. It was translated itself in a lot of things. and that's why we are here today. This roundtable will, according to the concept note, examine the value of the economy of the Southern African region. Examine the value. When you talk of the blue economy, we have all these waters, oceans, lakes, rivers, or even rainwater, which every day God gives us and we don't use it. So it's all water. So how are we going to use it in Africa in order to strengthen our own economy? Let me remind you, here in Tanzania, we have been saying this for phase one of Africa's renaissance. Mwalimu taught us to remember that we had been exploited for a long time in Africa. We have been neglected for a long time in Africa. And we have been oppressed for a long time in Africa. The first time I could dare say the Renaissance is when in 1963, in May, the day we are going to celebrate with the presence of President Mbeki, the OAU was born. And today we have the AU. The OAU did help Africa to acquire its political independence. We know it is not full independence yet. This phase is intended, and this process is intended to help Africa to acquire its economic independence and the full freedom that goes with that independence. Political independence is not complete and is not meaningful until it is supported at its foundation by the economic independence and the freedom that goes with that independence. We must be grateful to President Mbeki that he has chosen to speak on Africa's Day to remind us a little bit where we came from, where we are, and to look at the challenges that we are all facing. And if you look at the program, you'll see we are starting with this blue economy. The resources we have, the waters we have. But then we're also going he's going to be talking to the youth. That's the human resource, our youth. To what extent their energies, their education, their capacities relate to this economic independence. We know the challenges of our youth. Unemployed, and there are many. There are very many. In Tanzania, we have them in our families, and I think in South Africa, you have them in your families also. President Thabo Mbeki is going to walk us through. So, as I say, we had the honor of being invited to co-host, and Mwalimu Nyerere was in the forefront to deal with these issues at the national level, at the grassroots level. And he introduced institutions from the top to the bottom, up to the household, all intended to deal with these problems. At the international level, you know, he was, I think, asked, almost directed by President Mbeki and his colleagues as members of the non-aligned movement to establish a South Commission. And he worked for 2 years with the commissioners, 27 of them, to produce a report, the challenge to the South, the report of the South Commission. In that report, which is our report for the non-aligned countries, for us in South Africa and for the rest of the continent, it is our report. Some of the issues which we're going to be discussing here are in that report. I'm sure in the discussions here, President Mbeki will have an opportunity to tell us a little bit about his experiences in tackling these problems. Having said that, let me say again, once again, Professor, that I'm here to say karibu to President Mbeki. I'm happy to see you. I met you several times. You're not new to me. You are my president and my leader too, and our leader. Karibu sana. Karibu sana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Asante sana, Elder Butiko. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Harris Shuping from the South African High Commission in Tanzania, present with us this morning. Thank you very much for receiving us warmly here. We feel at home as well. According to our program now, we are going to a session where we are going to call the keynote speaker. And our keynote speaker this morning is going to be Professor Anthony van Niekerk, who is the head of Diplomacy and International Affairs at the Thabo Mbeki School and a lead researcher in maritime studies at the school. I'm just going to share with you a little bit of who he is. Anthony van Niekerk holds a doctorate in international relations from Wits University in Johannesburg. Having been research active from the early 1990s, he has pursued an academic career in postgraduate teaching, supervision, and policy analysis from 2000. In 2015, the South African government appointed him to the South African Council on International Relations, and in 2018 to the Presidential High-Level Review Panel into Intelligence. Anthony is a skilled institutional architect and experienced academic manager, facilitator, and program evaluator. He publishes widely on African foreign and security policy, has participated in several scenario exercises, and has broad experience with advising policymakers and practitioners in the South African government, SADC, and the African peer review mechanisms. He coordinated a network of Southern African academics and practitioners and is a senior research associate at Good Governance Africa, a SMARTS Memorial Trust trustee, and serves as editorial board member of the several accredited journals. Professor Anthony is going to deliver his keynote address now. Can we have a warm round of applause as he ascends to the stage? Colleagues, perhaps those who are aware, Captain Hamad was supposed to be the speaker for the keynote. Due to the visit of the presidential visit of the President of Namibia, he will not be able to do so. And instead, that's why Professor Anthony is taking his place at the moment. However, Captain Hamad, who's the Principal Secretary of Ministry of Blue Economy and Fisheries in Zanzibar, was supposed to be taking this podium, but other important work called him on duty with the President. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Good morning to everybody. I'm very happy to be here today with you. You can think of me as Captain Hamad. When we researched the program, I looked him up. And, you know, in this day and age of IT and the internet, the presentation on the Zanzibari perspective on the blue economy and the work that they do is available online. His PowerPoint presentation actually is readily available. And I associate with what he says. I was hoping he would share that with us this morning. But we're aligned in terms of our messages. I think it's of symbolic value for us to start the Africa Day celebrations this week in Dar es Salaam, in this venue, because if you open the door here and you go to the window, you see the harbor, you see the container ships, and you see the ferries that goes to the islands, Zanzibar and others. Beyond that is a vast expanse of the Indian Ocean into the Pacific. And actually, our former colonizers used the oceans to arrive here, to take what belongs to us across the oceans. It's a process that some of our academic colleagues argue continues up until today. And one of the drivers of the research around the value of maritime and marine and the blue economy for Africa is precisely this question which my predecessor, the chair of the foundation, raised when he spoke about President Mbeki. How do we recover what we've lost to others? How do we make the oceans to belong to us? To answer these questions, we've designed a research program, and Program Director, we've brought together experts across different dimensions to speak to these topics, which I won't preempt. But I want to say that instead of doing a keynote, I really don't want to do a keynote. I want to say that as the research community in Southern Africa, and hopefully when resources and partnerships allow continentally, we have to answer some key questions. The African Union has adopted AIMS, the African Integrated Maritime Strategy. SADC, to which we belong, the both of us, also has a strategy around maritime. Is it integrated? Is it implemented? If you go to the AU headquarters and you ask to speak to the officials who implement AIMS, what will they tell you? Is Africa able to integrate the drivers behind maritime and marine in such a way that our people, millions of them, benefit from the blue economy, from tourism, from the work that is being done to harness life in and under the ocean, and to have the instruments in place to secure and protect what belongs to us. So if I put this in summary format, we talk about marine life, life in and under the oceans, and how humans affect life in and under the oceans, and how we use the oceans to our own economic and developmental benefit. That's the maritime. As researchers, we are bold to say that AIMS and SADC and other strategies and policy frameworks do not yet meet our requirements. We have to have a deep rethink. We have to marry marine and maritime. We have to explain to the fisher or the fishing village who is suffering from pollution because a new harbor is being built right next to the community, displacing them, so that the containers can move in faster and our natural resources can move out faster, why it is that we prioritize economic agendas that seemingly is not in our interest. Madam Chair, these are difficult questions. I have the courage to put them on the table, but I also want to ensure you that we do this in quite a structured manner. UNISA has a great depth of research expertise on marine and maritime. You will hear them now in the course of the day. And one of our objectives being with you today is to also explore the possibility of renewed or new partnerships. As South Africans, we can tell you our experience with the waters, Atlantic, Indian, and Southern, and those that are hidden away, the Antarctic, and the possible contestation for control of that part. We have policy and strategies in place. We give them names. Some of them work, others don't. In the discussion, I'm quite hopeful that we will have a dialogue, a conversation, because we can share with you what we know and what we've learned, but we also want to know what is the Tanzanian and the Zanzibar experience with the blue economy. What is working for you, and how can we cooperate even deeper? In fact, let me conclude on a more positive note. We have all signed up to the ACFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. It is a big and bold experiment to promote and prioritize free trade across the continent, because we face trouble out there, troubled waters, a volatile international situation. In fact, I think there's a new Cold War brewing. My more positive colleagues from political science says we are moving to a new era of multipolarity. It'll balance out. I'm doubtful. We must prepare our scenarios for contestation. Superpowers are interested in us, in our continent, because we have a lot that they need. Not only rare minerals, the youth, sir, that you mentioned as a resource, that belongs to us and that we have to look after and enable to play their role. If we can get our house in order, we will be able to say to the Americans, the Chinese, the Russians, the Europeans, the Gulf states, we know our place, we have an identity, deal with us on equal terms. To do those higher order things, we have to start at home. And one of the starting positions is right here today. How do we harness the blue economy to our benefit? To our benefit. And that's where the research community must talk to the policymakers. That dialogue, I think, is quite important. It's one thing we work at the Thabo Mbeki School, is to build the bridge between research and policy. And in the room we have practitioners and academics. Chair, I think this will set the scene for what is going to follow, and I'm very happy with the program as it looks, because we were able to harness our own experts to come and advise us, inform us, educate us, and also challenge us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Asante sana, Professor Anthony. Thank you very much for framing these discussions for us. And now we are transitioning into the first panel discussions. As we know that this roundtable will examine the value of the blue economy for the Southern African region. And we know that several African universities and think tanks undertake research and analysis relating to marine and maritime themes. And many benefits from this collaboration will be sought with peers across Africa during this roundtable. And we also believe that our interaction with our Tanzanian colleagues will contribute to furthering the strategic objectives of African knowledge creation, collaboration, and dissemination. And basically in this roundtable, there are a few questions that we are asking for discussion that will frame the discussion. What is the role of the blue economy in Southern African plans to address poverty and unemployment? Should policymakers consider the blue economy, blue security, blue justice, and blue health in an integrated manner to pursue strategic development objectives? And if so, how? How will they do that? What are the relationship between African free trade and the blue economy? Also, what are the lessons of several African initiatives, such as South Africa's Operation Pakisa and Zanzibar's Blue Economy Agenda? And to kickstart this panel, I'm going to hand over to one of our moderators for today for the first panel, Professor David Millo. And Professor David Millo is the head of the government affairs at the Thabo Mbeki School, and he holds a D. Admin from the University of Pretoria, and is currently working at the school, has been with us for 5 years now. Professor Millo was a research director at the Northwest University Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences, and was head of interest of the Department of Public Management at Tshwane University of Technology. His research interests are in performance management, monitoring and evaluation, and ethics. Professor Millo is a member of the South African Association of Public Administration Management, SAPAM, which is a regional, a national sub-branch of APAM, and serves on the editorial committee of the Journal of Public Administration, and he is the deputy editor at the moment. And also, Professor Millo has served as member of the Northwest Provincial Government Research Advisory Committee in South Africa, and adjudicator for the National Batupile Excellency Awards for 4 consecutive years. And Professor Millo is a C-rated researcher with the National Research Foundation, and the C3 rated researcher is a very local South African rating, which means he's an established scholar according to the national ratings of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Professor Millo, who will welcome our panelists for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I'll stand on established protocols because I believe that all the dignitaries have been greeted as well. As we look at this very important theme of the day, harnessing the blue economy. I'm sure all of us, as we enter this room, we have a lot of questions. And during this first session, and in the second session, we are going to try by all means to answer all the questions that we have. And as we do that, we are going to be assisted by a number of distinguished scholars. I'm going to welcome on stage two scholars. The first one is Dr. Lucy Schule. Lucy Schule is a senior lecturer and currently Director of Studies at the National Defense College. She holds a doctorate from the University of Newcastle in Australia, a BA and a MA in political science from the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. She has been working in defense and security for more than 2 decades. In addition to that, she is a recipient of several awards, one of which is that she's a member of the professional organization, a guest lecturer of various academic and professional institutions, and her research interests are in the area of security. So we'll hear more from her in terms of what is it that we can do in terms of securing the waters that surround us. And I'm also going to be joined by Professor Senia Namo. She is a unison. She is my colleague at the University of South Africa. She holds a PhD in economics from the Wits University in South Africa. She received a prestigious African Economic Research Consortium Award for master's and doctoral studies. So she is indeed a distinguished scholar in her own right. Professor Namo has a strong desire to build capacity on the African continent. So she's not only focusing on South Africa. Over the past 20 years, she has been involved in the teaching at both undergraduate as well as the postgraduate level. Professor Namo, I'm sure you will also agree with me that the lengthy CV, if I go through it, then I'll take the time that you're supposed to be spending in terms of interacting with the audience. Let me take this opportunity to invite you all to come and join me so that we can start with the actual program of the day. Thank you very much. So these are the experts who are going to assist us in unpacking this very important topic in as far as harnessing the blue economy. And I'm going to start by calling on to... Yeah, you can sit down. I'll call you to the I'm going to start by calling to the podium the very last one that I've introduced, which was Professor Senyam Namo. Prof, I'm going to give you 15 minutes. Your reflections, please. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, the Vice Principal UNISA, allow me to observed. You will understand I've only been given 15 minutes, and I have a lot to share with you this morning. I am an economist, and this morning I would like to engage. Is it okay?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. This morning, as an economist, I would like to engage on the ocean economy. The ocean is important in terms of value creation. If the ocean economy were a country, according to a recent OECD report, it would be one of the largest economies in the world, actually ranked as the 5th economy in terms of GDP size. In South Africa, the ocean is often referred to as the 10th province. So in addition to the 9 provinces in the country, the ocean, because of its importance, to the South African economy, has been considered to be the 10th. Please get this right. We can. Okay now. All right. And so we consider the gross value added size of the economy to be approximately $2.6 trillion as of 2020. It also sustains over 100 million full-time equivalent jobs worldwide. And so I'm sure you are sitting there and asking, how many of these jobs, how many of these 100 million jobs would be considered to be flowing from Africa? And so the statistics show that most of these 100 million jobs are actually flowing from the Asia-Pacific region. And so it says, as Africans, we have a lot of work in terms of tapping this natural resource that we have in abundance in 38 coastal economies within our continent. And I think I would like to then present a few points on the activities that have taken place, first from a global perspective, then move to the continent, and then highlight a few important aspects, a number of African countries. Perspective, the UN declared the UN Decade of the Ocean from 2021 to 2030. Within the Decade of the Ocean, institutions were invited to submit their decade programs focusing on the economy, on the blue economy. And I'm proud standing here to mention that as UNISA, we made a submission of a decade program focusing on restore our coasts. And so we have been active, realizing that globally the ocean is considered as an important sector. Coming to the African continent, in 2013, the African Union reflected on the successes of the previous 50 years. And at the point, there was a need to share for the next 50 years, and hence the Agenda 2063. I had the privilege of sitting of the sessions where the AU consulted that section. The blue economy was recognized as a flagship project. So I'm talking 2013. I just want to bring you to where we are now. So that was in 2013. In 2018, for the very first time on this continent, in Kenya, we hosted the first international conference focusing on the blue economy. So we realized that as Africans, we are endowed with this natural resource that we need to take advantage of. And so as UNISA, realizing the importance of this sector, we signed an MOU with the African Union. And that MOU enabled us to participate in this blue economy sector. There were a series of events on the continent. The continent framework. That guides on the economy. Okay. As a continent, we do have a strategic framework that was developed to guide the continental activities focusing on this blue economy. And as you may know, at continental level, the implementation would then be considered from the regional economic communities, our 8 regional economic communities recognized by the AU. And so there are a number of activities happening at that level to make sure that member states within each regional economic community are active when we consider the blue economy. And interestingly, no one is left out because the definition of the blue economy is very broad. It also includes countries that are landlocked. It's not just about the ocean. We also consider inland water bodies that have been of critical importance to African economies. And so, again, at the continental level, NEPAD, AUDA, the implementing agency, is responsible for taking that continental strategic framework and then developing an implementation plan. And so there is a lot of work going on at continental level. Looking at national level initiatives, we have a number of African countries that now have national blue economy strategies. Seychelles, Mauritius, South Africa, I think an earlier speaker referred to Operation Pakisa. And We have 18 countries using marine spatial planning. 3 have established blue financing tools. I'm sure you are aware that there are a number of financing mechanisms. Finance has always been a challenge. There are approximately 268 projects that have been endorsed as UN Decade of the Ocean project. As UNISA, I did say we do have a project that was endorsed. So where are we now from 2023? But most of these 268 projects lack financing, funding for the blue economy sector. Maybe the benefits are not so obvious. Hence, we need such forums where we popularize and educate people about the importance of the blue economy. And perhaps we are sitting with philanthropists in this room who can engage with us after this to say, listen, there are so many projects on the continent that can yield meaningful benefits for our people and eradicate poverty. But where is the finance coming from? We are aware of the global geopolitical tensions currently, and so to think as Africa, we can continue to rely on donor funding, we will be missing the bigger picture. It is important that as African countries, we engage in domestic resource mobilization that will attract meaningful funding, particularly targeted to the blue economy sector. Our youth, our women need to see the benefits that they can get from the ocean. We talk about entrepreneurship. And I think almost every institution of higher learning on the continent has some kind of incubator within the university. But are we seeing the investment opportunities that can flow from the blue economy? As institutions of higher learning, we have a responsibility. I have been teaching environmental economics for a long time, but the curriculum has tended to focus on green issues, the green narrative. When it comes to fisheries, if I recall some years back, we would focus on shared resources within the continent, specifically focusing on Lake Tanganyika, and considering fisheries at that small scale. But now we need to revamp our curriculum and ensure that when we teach about this 10th province, when we teach about this 5th global country in courts, what kind of opportunities are there that can make sure that we meet our development agenda as African member states? And so, in the interest of time, I really have a lot to share, and I'm passionate about what is happening in this economic sector. Let me just highlight some key sectors and opportunities for growth. So, obviously, the main sector that has been of attention, that has received a lot of attention over years, is the sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. In 2019, when the AU came up with the Blue Economy strategy, it was driven by AU IBA. And I was thinking and saying, possibly, it was just for obvious reasons that the ocean economy is associated with fisheries and aquaculture. But soon, when the AU restructured, the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development now has a department within focusing specifically on blue economy issues, realizing that it's not only about sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, but there are marine renewable energy opportunities, the floating solar panels on the ocean. Do we have those technologies? Where can we get them as a continent? And so this brings the important role of having meaningful partnerships with universities, not only on the continent, but also abroad. Those who have gone ahead, we can take advantage. There are important organizations that have even gone to the extent of creating a digital twin of the economy so that we can model and understand a number of factors associated with the economy. The tourism sector, very much important for us as a continent. Yesterday, we decided to just see what is available here in Dar es Salaam, and with guidance from hotel staff, we were led to Coco Beach. And so when we got to Coco Beach, what I wanted was tilapia, ugali, and sukuma wiki. And when we got there, I looked at it, and I said, there is an opportunity here, but in my mind, I'm thinking of this exotic, transforming it into an amazing exotic beach. That's the picture that I have currently. And then my colleague said to me, if you come here and transform it, what happens to the communities on the ground? This is a livelihood. They are where they are, comfortable. And so are we going to continue with plundering and grabbing resources from local communities? Or are we going to partner with them and ensure that they get the benefit? And with that important reflection from my colleague, I said it is important that we don't take this important resource to communities. And so we have a role as experts in this room to ensure that when we take advantage of this ocean resource, we don't forget the citizens, the communities that are supported by these ocean economies, and their livelihoods depends on it. There is also an issue of shipping and maritime transport. I think my colleagues will engage on that later. Marine biotechnology. Still nascent, but R&D activities are ongoing. We need financing for these R&D activities so that we can develop the pharmaceutical sector. Mauritius and Egypt have taken a lead in that space of marine biotechnology, and so as a continent we can learn from them. The education sector, I don't want to underestimate the importance of the role of education in making sure the African continent is aware of the benefits. And so we don't only think higher education. This must start at primary level. In South Africa, we had gained traction in ensuring that marine sciences becomes one of the studies or one of the subjects introduced even at primary school level. Very much important. So we need to ensure that we have vibrant regional blue economy training centers, have curriculum, development, ocean literacy campaigns, coastal youth education, showing them some of these opportunities in the blue economy sector. And then lastly, I will then talk also about, I've been mentioning it time and again, the finance and innovation. Like I said, as a continent, we are proud that we have, Seychelles was the first country globally to have the blue bond. Others followed, but we went ahead, realizing the importance of financing the blue economy sector. And so to realize the ocean economy's full potential sustainably, an estimated $1.5 trillion in sovereign funding and $1 trillion in private investment will be required by 2030. Did you hear the amounts? 1.5, that's an estimate. Trillion, that's the funding we expect from our governments to inject into this economy, so that also as academic institution we can benefit from that. We need money for R&D activities. 1 trillion in private sector. The importance of public-private partnerships, very much important. I believe we have members here from the private sector. Please hear us. There are opportunities. I know there are a lot of questions about bankable projects, about de-risking some of these investments. The profits are not so obvious. Think about aquaculture projects inland. When I learned for the first time that tilapia fish that I was looking for at Cocoa Beach, it takes 9 months, approximately. Did you know that? 9 months for a nice big tilapia fish to grow. And so the returns are not so obvious. But we need to start somewhere. We need to promote our local communities. We need to promote cooperatives in the communities so that they realize the importance of the blue economy sector. Let me not even mention the bigger opportunities of mariculture. So we have aquaculture inland, where we have these small fish ponds, but there are bigger opportunities of engaging in this at a large scale, even within the sea. And what prevents our youth from taking that opportunity is the lack of funding. I'm speaking as an economist, and I think I've used the word funding more than 10 times in the 15 minutes. So it is a good time for me to stop, and I think the key message has been delivered. I have a lot to say. As I said, it is a long day, and I believe the engagement does not end here. The purpose of this roundtable is to make sure that we forge meaningful partnerships that will take this conversation further. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Namo. You know, when a person is very passionate about a subject, the temptation is there to always keep on going, because this is something that you do, this is something that you live. And within her own reflections, she mentioned jobs, something that we desperately need in Africa. She mentioned the decade of the ocean, so dedicating a decade to the ocean. And most importantly, no one is left behind. Whether you have an ocean close by, you are landlocked, you must come on board. And again, as she left the stage, she was actually saying funding, and she has repeated it so many times. We're also going to give you an opportunity to also reflect as the audience, to ask questions where it is necessary. But before we do that, I'm going to now call onto the podium Dr. Lucy Shule, our security expert, to come and also give us some reflections as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Your Excellency, President Mbeki, Mzee Butiku, distinguished members of the audience, good morning. In African way, we have to greet, besides the protocols. And those who are new to Dar es Salaam or to Tanzania, karibuni sana Tanzania, karibuni Dar es Salaam. My responsibility this morning, before I get into, I should like to take this opportunity to thank UNISA and the Thabo Mbeki Foundation for inviting me to come this morning to share some discussion with you about the security dimensions of the blue economy. And I would wish also to make a bit of corrections on my title. I'm no longer the Director of Studies, but I'm still at the National Defense College, Tanzania, handling the training, particularly the curriculum affairs. Thank you so much. As a way of introduction, I would wish to present two pictures on Africa. The first one is about the existing reality, the size, the position, and what we are as Africa. And the other side is about the reality that we are or will be facing in the future. Africa is the second largest continent, and it has approximately 30 million square kilometers. And this is equivalent to the 2/3 of the size of Asia and 3 times the size of Europe. And also, this is a home to the second largest and longest rivers, the Congo and the Nile. And there are 63 million international river basins, covering approximately 64% of the continent's land area. So the African Great Lakes constitutes 27% of the surface fresh water. And this is the largest proportion in the world. And again, 39 out of 54 African countries are coastal and inland states whose territorial waters and exclusive economic zones under their jurisdiction are extensive, measuring 13 million square kilometers, and their continental shelves extend over a total area of some 6.5 square kilometers. This is one side of Africa. On the other side, regardless on how we interpret poverty, but 46% of the population live in extreme poverty. And by 2050, it is projected that Africa will account much of the sharper increase in world's population. It is expected that a quarter of the world's population by 2050 will be living in Africa. So based on what we have in terms of resources, blue economy potentials, and how are we now, how are we going to look like by 2050? These are kind of reflections that we might wish to have in mind while discussing about the security dimensions of the blue economy. In my view, blue economy and security are intertwined. This is despite the fact that some of the scholars believe that blue economy and security are two sides of the same coin. But for me, I think when we talk about a secure maritime environment, it's crucial for sustainable environment, and also the sustainable development of blue economy is likewise important for the security. And I would wish also to advance the argument that in as much as we talk or we discuss about or we pay significant attention to blue economy, but the security dimension, the security in its broadest sense, is equally important, which will help us to maximize the potentials that we can get from the development of the blue economy. And in this case, to ensure that the blue economy leads to people's development and not development that does not really impact into the people's lives. Now, I would wish to give a general understanding of blue economy. It's a contested concept, but there are elements that I would wish to highlight so that we can have a security perspective understanding of the blue economy. Some most of the concepts have been inclining into economic activities that relate to oceans, seas, coasts, including renewable marine energy, transport and engineering, fishing, coastal tourism, and business and issues related to ecosystem. But also, in my view, blue economy should include marine research and development and education. This is another element that is important, because if you talk about the development of blue economy, it's not possible to get it right without conducting research. My co-panelist has mentioned it a little bit earlier. But now, African perspective of the blue economy has extended beyond the seas and oceans and coasts, and also it includes lakes, rivers, and underground waters, the statistics which we had some few minutes before. So this broader conceptualization of the blue economy provides more room for African states to maximize the use of their water bodies, in addition to their maritime domain, which most of the blue economy discourses focus on. And in this way, it means that will benefit the citizens. So it's not just the oceans and seas, but also the lakes, rivers, and the water basins that are found. For security, I would wish also to highlight the fact that most of the security discourse throughout has been focusing on the power and state militaristic approach. And for example, we can look as to how states are managing the piracy in the seas and ocean. That is more largely, although there are other approaches which are done behind the scenes, but on the surface, it appears like the operations against piracy are more of a militaristic approach. But in this context, I would wish to use the non-traditional conceptualization, which focuses on human aspect. In this case, it focuses on economy, economic security, food security, when we talk about fisheries and fishing communities, health security, toxic dumping in the oceans and seas, environmental security. How do we conserve the environment with the extraction in the economy and with extraction on the maritime domain? And in this context, also the political security. So in this context, human security is key because it enables the condition for human development. And this, at the same time, it gives a broader picture of security. Now, if one would wish to locate blue economy within Africa and the UN frameworks, possibly it's important to see where do we come as Africans, as Southern Africans, as far as blue economy and security is concerned. Initially, for Africa, the sea was not important. As mentioned earlier during the opening remarks, it was used by those traders who came from Arabia, India, Persia, and other regions, who traveled to the coasts of Eastern Africa and other parts using those. And this time they used the monsoon winds, which just was mainly for travel purposes. But after independence for most of the African countries, still the blue economy, the maritime domain was not a focus. Most of the post-independence African countries were focusing on, for example, interstate conflicts, for example, borderland conflicts, and overlooked, in my view, the fact that how the development on the hinterland can be connected with the development in the oceans so that it can bring to people's development. Possibly the realities of the time by then could not allow to look into how the blue economy can benefit the countries. But now with the reality of the population pressures which the nations will have to cope with, it means maximizing the use of the blue economy becomes important and a necessity for the countries to be able to bring development to their people. And also, I would wish to talk about how did Africa look at the blue economy during the 80s and 90s. During the 80s and 90s, most of the countries were grappling with the structural adjustment programs, which also never paid attention to the oceans and seas. Likewise, this also means Africa maintained its perception of looking at the sea from a distance and not something that they can capitalize on. On the other hand, the other countries, the developed countries, were seeing now the significance of the sea for transportation. And this is partly because the marine cargoes were traveled to and from Africa for various purposes. So we all agree that currently there is a growing awareness that neglecting the blue economy can lead to a loss of opportunities and even serious security threats. But how is that realization put into action? That is a question that probably we might need to discuss. Now, Agenda 2063 declares the blue economy to be Africa's future, and it recognizes the role that ocean plays as a catalyst for socio-economic development. And also in that way, the Africa's integrated maritime strategy was also promulgated in line with that. At the UN level, the blue economy is interlinked with a number of sustainable development goals. Beyond, for example, Sustainable Development Goal 14, which focuses on conservation and sustainable use of oceans. Then also Goal 1, which focuses on how blue economy can provide opportunities to alleviate poverty. And this is Goal 1 of the Sustainable Development Goal. Likewise, Goal number 2 on improving food security and eliminating hunger is also related to how potentials for blue economy can maximized. In the same way, Goal number 6, which is about accessing clean water. At this juncture, I would wish also to highlight the key players and issues which are associated with the security side or security dimension of the blue economy. The first one is piracy. Most of the time when we hear about blue economy and security threats which are associated with that, the reference has been given to piracy, and which has been a problem for over the years. There are debates that surround piracy, in the sense that it was a problem for the Eastern African coast, maybe for the past 10 years, but now currently is a problem in the Gulf of Guinea. But the question is, the symptoms of piracy were manifested in the sea because the pirates operate from the inland. To what extent the inland problems have been addressed to the extent that piracy can be declared that it's no longer a security threat for the nations. So what I would wish to argue here is that until we address the key causes of piracy from the hinterland, it will not be possible to declare that we are done with piracy as one of the security issues that surround blue blue economy. And related to that is the economic costs that are attached to managing piracy. As we are all aware that there are private maritime companies. Thank you, my time is up, I'm being chased away, but just add 3 minutes with the permission of the chair. That the costs which are associated with managing piracy does not mean that they are being incurred with those companies only. At the end of the day, they'll be incurred by the consumers, who are the normal people. So if we're looking at these security threats, but also we have to look as to what extent this impact the citizens and the normal citizens. The other issue is the presence of non-state actors, such as Al-Shabaab and terrorist organizations. The point that I would wish to make here is that the challenges that the countries face, they are also manifested in the oceans and in the sea. For example, incidences of terrorist attacks, including the impacts, also the cost of tourism, in the sense that the countries will not be able to benefit from tourist potentials. There's pollution, toxic dumping, and overfishing, which have impact on the environment. And also, the last one which I would wish to highlight here is the question of maritime wealth blindness, in the sense that as African countries, we're aware that blue economy is important for us. But what really constitutes or is constituted in the blue economy, what wealth we have, for example, in the ocean resources, that is what is referred to as maritime resource blindness, which is, I would say, a challenge to most of the countries, because we develop frameworks to make sure that we benefit from the resources that we have. But to what extent, for example, we negotiate with those who come as legitimate actors to seek to take advantage of what we have in terms of wealth and attempt to negotiate deals that are not really beneficial to the African countries. There are recommendations which I've mentioned, but I will not talk to them. Maybe I'll bring them up during the discussion. But I wish to conclude my discussion by saying blue economy is one of Africa's most promising sectors in terms of development. But it's important to address some of the associated security aspects. So in so doing, Africa will have the capacity to capitalize on the opportunity to harness the potentials of blue economy, and this way to foster development of its people and increase participation in the global economy. I would wish to end my talk by quoting Mwalimu Nyerere. This is a quote from Money and Politics in Africa Today and Tomorrow. And he talked about this on 16th May 1999, during an interview. He said, I quote, "Now than ever before, I strongly believe that Africa's political independence will never be complete until African people take in their hands the control of the economies instead of leaving them in the hands of foreign forces. This is the challenge of the new generation of leaders in Africa." Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shule. She has reflected on very important issues, and one of which is that we have 46% of people living in poverty. At the same time, we have wealth, but we are blind. We can't see this wealth. And I'm sure during discussions, we have to find a way of unlocking this wealth so that those who live in poverty can now get the much needed jobs in Africa. Now, I'm going to open this session for comments and questions. My request is that be as brief as you can. And I'm going to take the first round, and I'll also be communicating with the program director because we borrowed time from the program director, and she was telling me that we are almost going overboard in terms of time. So I'm going to open the floor for questions and comments. Again, very brief. I see the very first hand right at the back. That is hand number 1. The mic, in the meantime, while I'm still searching for other hands, the mic can go right at the back so that we get that comment or question. So far, we have only one hand. Okay, there's another one here, right in front. Yes, from a lady in front. Number 3, you'll be number 3, and then we'll have number 4 over there. Can I have the last one, number 5? Okay, number 5 will be over there. Okay? Okay, you need this one. Okay. Right at the back there. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Dunlop Otieno Chiang. I come from the Open University of Tanzania. So I thank presenters about the blue economy, but for me, I think blue economy is just a new terminology or a trend because issues around water, economy around water have been there from time immemorial. We know, for example, that the architecture, Swahili Arabic architecture, have been built with mangrove and coral reef from the lake. So they know the importance of the lake and whatever comes from it. And we know about Nilo-Saharan who have been just living across lakes, around lakes, because they know that there is economy there. And also we know about Nile, the importance of Nile to Sudan and Egypt coming with the treaties. So for me, I think blue economy is just a terminology. It has been there all the time. We have known in Africa the importance of the lakes and the importance of the seas. And the speakers have said 2 things which I think are very, very important. Whatever we think, whatever we want to promote the blue economy, let us think about the common mwananchi, the citizen. How do we address their security? Whatever there is something to do with an economy that generates taxes and income to the government, there is a problem. We have seen this in Tanzania when we welcomed investors in the lake region to come and invest in fisheries. What happened is that they would take the flesh and leaving wananchi eating bones. It means that when we were doing that, promoting business, fish business, we do not consider that what will our people eat. And again, we came with other policies like size of nets. Size of nets, so if they catch you with the nets which is not the size they want, they burn it. So we protect the environment, but if you ban somebody's net, what their children will eat, how they will go to the school, do we think of that? So to be brief, whatever we want to promote something, let us first consider the citizens. I think that's very, very important. Their security, their livelihood, and in that way, we will be sustainable in whatever we are doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Emmanuel Mhache from the Open University of Tanzania. When I was born, I was baptized and the name given is Emmanuel. And when I asked my parents why they have called me Emmanuel, they said that the name of the Emmanuel is God with us. So my question is, the last presenter talked and said that blue economy is a contested concept. And I was asking myself why they are calling this blue economy and not water economy. So that's my simple question to the presenter. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being very brief. We'll come to the front table. The lady here, yes.
Hi all, my name is Farhia Elmi. I am a marine scientist and I am a founder of a startup called Sea Blue Innovators. And my question today is, what mechanisms are being developed at AU level to ensure grassroots innovators and startups to access catalytic financing, especially in marginalized coastal communities? That is my question.
Thank you very much for being very brief. I like it. The third hand was over there. The lady over there.
Thank you for this opportunity. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Catherine Kemi from United Nations. I'm National Ambassador for Advocates Group. My question going direct to Professor. Considering the growing importance of ocean economy, what are policies or partnerships do you believe are most effective on creating sustainable blue economy pathways that prioritize youth innovation, entrepreneurship, and job creation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last hand in the table in front.
Thank you so much. My name is Penina Elias. I come from the University of Dar es Salaam. Also, I'm the president of Tanzania Youth Biodiversity Network. I'm here to ask the question. My questions go direct. That's what joint strategies can SADC and EAC develop to prevent illegal, unprotected, and unregulated fishing, and how can we use satellites and different technology to do monitoring in those efforts? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am now going to call upon our panelists to come to respond to these questions. Please don't exceed 5 minutes. I know you can summarize a thing into 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for Thank you very much for the interesting questions that you have raised. I'll go straight to the question. I don't know if I got the name correctly, Dr. Anchiang. You have raised important issues about the blue economy being in existence since time immemorial. You talk about the issue of mangroves, you talk about coral reefs, you also bring a very painful issue concerning the Nile perch. I watched a documentary years back, I think almost 20 years ago, when I was studying environmental economics, and we saw how the nice fillets from the Nile perch were being exported, and local communities literally eating the fish bone and the head. For some of us, the fish head, we want to throw it away because there's nothing there on it. But that was what was remaining for the local communities. And so it will be said to say if this happened 20 years ago and there has not been any transformation to change that narrative, then we are not making progress. And hence, even though it's an issue that existed a number of years back, it requires much attention now. We need solutions. We need solutions at the local level through government policies. We need solutions at the local level. What are the local governments doing about this issue of the blue economy? We need engagement also with the local communities, the citizens themselves. In the blue economy, the broader blue economy framework, we talk about the core design principles. And this core design says nothing for us without us. And so the engagement level needs to be brought down to provide the solutions that are required in that context. What may work in the Durban coastline will not work at Cocoa Beach. And so I need to go there, understand the context, understand the livelihoods, understand the Tanzanian shilling and what it can do for its people. So I think, in short, we need to protect the local communities from the investors, no matter how attractive the investment looks in terms of just looking at the monetary value, what is coming in. But we may be destroying the livelihoods of local communities, which are very important. So the investment must come, but ensure that local communities also benefit. So the regulatory frameworks and investment protocols must speak to that. I think another question that came my way from Emmanuel, God is with us. The water economy. I've been thinking the water economy. I guess that might not work so much in the context that, as we have highlighted, the blue economy kind of then encompasses all these other sectors that come in energy. Not to say blue captures energy. So it is an interesting research questions for the researchers in the room. Water versus blue economy. Let's think about it and engage with Emmanuel later. Okay. Innovation. See blue innovators. Funding, like I said, is a critical issue. And so as a continent, for instance, from having the opportunity to sit in the validation workshop for the Africa Blue Economy Strategy. Now, this strategy was presented by looking at 5 main sectors. And for each of the sectors, there was a group that set to talk about funding, addressing whether it's tourism, whether it's energy, or any opportunity that can flow. And as I indicated earlier, from a continental perspective, NEPAD, the implementing agency for the AU programs, are busy. They came up with an implementation plan. But I must say, sadly, I'll use the word sadly because I am for domestic resource mobilization. So at continental level, you will discover that a lot of funding now still flows from the EU. So there is EU-AU partnership. So if you are talking big funding for big projects, then you must bid, submit your proposals, and hopefully get, it's highly competitive, so it depends on the nature of projects. So for your solution, I believe at national level, as we develop our national, for South Africa we have the NDP, it must address this funding issue. When we talk of projects such as the one that you mentioned, focusing on youth empowerment, then we must be very specific and ensure that we address funding mechanisms for this. But every now and then, I advise you to search. Globally, there are a lot of organizations interested looking at blue economy issues, and every now and then there are calls for proposals, have proposals ready to send and apply for funding that is available. Local communities, local municipalities also have a role to make sure that these direct entrepreneurship projects that are focusing on the youth are actually financed. Partnerships are also very important with the private sector to ensure that there is some meaningful funding that can come your way. I think I have answered the questions. I think Dr. Lucy will address the other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Namo. Dr. Shule, your turn. 5 minutes as well.
Thank you so much, Professor. I will try to respond quickly to those interesting questions and interventions from the members of the audience. About the conception, blue economy is not new. It is discussed as a new phenomena that has started to be recently been used. That does not mean that the practices of benefiting from the potentials emanating from the blue economy were not used. I think it's just a question of the terminology itself. I fully agree that the communities were benefiting from mangrove, coral reefs, and the others. But I wish to say currently the scale of the understanding of the fact that the blue economy is beneficial to the African societies, to the economy, has increased as compared to before. And I was trying to imagine if we were to exploit blue economy during the 60s, to what extent, for example, for the African countries, that could have been beneficial as compared to now. I would say probably currently we are more aware as compared to before. But what remains is to how that significance can be made to its maximum capacity for the country's development. And why not water economy? From my understanding, I think this concept was coined because it encompasses a number of factors. Not just the water, but also, for example, the resources that are attached beneath the water, about the oceans and the seas. That's why probably blue economy was coined vis-a-vis the green economy that we talk about on the hinterland. And there was also the last question from, I think, Madam Penina Elias. What are the East African Community and SADC initiatives to regulate fishing? From my understanding, there are national and regional initiatives to regulate fishing. For example, there is Zanzibar Fisheries Agency, if I got this correctly, which monitors and regulates the fishing that takes place in the high seas. In that sense, it means also for those unregulated fishers also being monitored and taken to task. At the regional level, I believe they've been developed, but I don't have any evidence. But the question is to how are they coordinated and integrated to address the problem? Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much. I am tempted to say let's go on with another round of questions, but time is not on our side. 3 more questions. Okay? All right. 3 more questions. We'll start with you, ma'am. And then the gentleman right at the back. You know, I know that this table is dominated by the Open University. But if I don't see anybody, let me come back to you. 1, 2, and 3. In that order. Again, let's be very brief. I've been given 10 minutes.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ms. Pauline Walter. I'm a nutritionist, but also a founder of a startup company, nutritious food processing company. My question is, we know nutrition and blue economy plays a significant role together. So I would like to know, is there any policies or strategies, if there is any, in combating malnutrition through sustainable use of blue economy resources such as ocean and aquatic resources in combating malnutrition, especially in Africa, if there is any? Thank you.
Man in a white shirt.
Okay, thank you so much for this chance. I have two questions. My names are Ongoso Elijah Muita from National College of Tourism. Whenever we are trying to implement such concepts or projects, we always suffer from lack of sufficient funds. And many times we run to the European Union, Action Aid, and other donor-funded projects. When will we as a continent, the second largest in the globe, end our much dependence from Europe and the US? Why can't we have our own sources, and when are we going to have this? The second question is, whenever we also try to implement such projects, the host community always suffers more than the benefit they get. So as we move forward with the blue economy, what is it there to promise that the host community is not going to view the concept as just a concept of the elites and the rich? How are they going to benefit, and how are we involving them at the beginning? Thanks.
Right at the back there. The table in the middle there, yes. The gentleman right at the back, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Kusanja Emmanuel Kusanja from Swahili, Africa. And I have a question, and it is like a suggestion, or you will see it. I know to some of us, we see people coming to our ways. For example, those who are coming as investors, they come, but the contracts are there by the government. Sometimes we see the investors doing their things in our ways, for example, in our oceans or lakes, but the citizens, these fellow citizens, the local ones, are not in contract. So they see people coming to the oceans, doing their business, and taking those things. The government is there aware. So I think this agenda is mostly dealing with the government, and then the government should talk to their people to give them the education on the way that to do or to deal with this blue economy. I think the government should know. And as my brother said, they take these fresh and they remain the bonds to the citizens. The citizens never know, but the government knows. So I think this is dealing with the government mostly, and then it will be dropping to the citizens. Thank you very much.
One critical question that was asked is, when is Africa becoming self-sufficient? And that is a question that all of us must answer, in addition to the responses that we're going to get from the panelists. Panelists, again, in the interest of time, I'm sure you can do better in terms of my 5 minutes.
Thank you once again for an excellent round of questions. I will start with the one focusing on nutrition and the blue economy. I think when we started this session, Prof. Paswana, you highlighted one of the focus points where you address poverty alleviation from the blue economy sector. So yes, the blue economy is actually very important for answering the issue of food security, and that is, it comes with the issue of malnutrition that you raise. And I think for me, the point that you raise brings us to the importance of science policy labs. So there is a lot of research that has been done focusing on the nutritional benefits from fish. Fish, I'm now talking about the various type of species that exist and what they contribute to human life. But unfortunately, most of that research is probably sitting in libraries. It's sitting in institutions of higher learning, and it's not brought to the attention of policymakers. And one easy way of doing that is doing policy briefs that we can share with our policymakers so that they can take advantage of this research. But as you are saying, it is an important source contributing to the health of the society and addressing the challenge of malnutrition. So let's not work in silos. The health sector is part of the blue economy, the education sector, equally important, the finance sector. Let's not work in silos and make sure that the research is then brought forward, again contributing to the importance of this sector in addressing poverty, food insecurity, and malnutrition. The issue of funding comes again, I think funding now being said, number 25. We look to the fiscus, and our tax, income tax, should the government say we are increasing taxes, we cry. Even if they say 1%, it's going to be ring-fenced. 1% of our GDP is going to be ring-fenced. Maybe we'll call it the Rotana agenda agreement here at Rotana and try to push it forward. We are all going to cry. So we are stretched in the context of the tax base. So looking to the fiscus might be a challenge, but we rely on you. There is strong political will, hence we have our elders here with us. And we still hope that as a continent, the government also will inject. At the moment, we are looking at just seed funding to allow us to do work of such a nature. Seed funding, resource mobilization for making sure that this agenda of the blue economy is pushed forward. Then funding for projects. And then, of course, the private sector. But when the private sector comes in, let's make sure that we don't leave out the local communities. Over to you. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for another round of questions and interventions. I would wish to highlight a little bit about nutrition. This also has to do with, I think, food sovereignty. The other dimension, the security dimension, part of it, in its broadest sense, in the sense that, for example, if one talks about dumping of toxic waste in the oceans, then this means also it impacts on countries' food sovereignty because it kills the flora and fauna which is found in the seas and oceans. The question about availability of funds for research, in my view, I think it has to do with commitment and the trust on research. What do we really want in terms of outcome of the research as African countries? And in this, I mean that there needs to be more of the willingness to trust research before we invest, before we do other developments, so that we can be able to make sure that the intended outcomes are met in the same way as the goal which has been set. I think this is somehow, to some degree, is missing in most of our African countries. And I would wish to link the second question about host communities suffering most from blue economy investments, and also investments in the local areas where people are not aware while the government is aware. I think this has to do with the education to the communities to the extent that they understand the investment that is being done, this is one side of it, is to their benefits. Because there is human beings, sometimes we are resistant to change, in the sense that if we don't know, we don't see the benefits, then we will perceive ourselves that some of the investment projects do not really result into the development as intended. The other side of